Hello, my name is Jane Young. I'm one of the physiotherapists here at Frankston Hospital, and I work with the woman during pregnancy and afterwards. Today I particularly wanted to talk about the changes that occur in your pelvic floor muscles. Just to orientate you, you can see here I've got a pelvis, but the pelvis is like a basin that sits at the end of the spine, and at the floor of the basin is muscle. So we call that pelvic floor muscles. The pelvic floor muscles in particular, one of their important roles is to hold up the organs that sit in the pelvis. What we mean by that is that at the front you have your bladder, in the middle you have your uterus, of course that's going to expand up into the abdominal region, and at the back you have the last bit of the bowel we call the rectum. Now those organs need to be held up and not fall down, so it's important to have muscle. So the muscle is normally like a trampoline really, that if you were sitting you could feel one sit bone in the other, and it goes from one sit bone to the other, and then from your tailbone to the front. I might use my hands here to show, because the trampoline actually, unlike a normal trampoline, has a gap in the middle. It needs a gap because I've mentioned the organs. Your bladder has to have an outlet we call the urethra, so you can wee. Your uterus has to have an outlet that you'll know, the vagina, and the rectum has an outlet, you might know the term, the anus. So those outlets need to go through that gap. So normally that gap is quite small. That way the organs sitting above there don't fall through. But even during your pregnancy, as the muscle stretches, that gap may open a little bit. So you can see, even if you end up having a caesarean section, by the time you have a stretched muscle with a bit of a gap, those organs sitting above can start to slouch down. So we really need to be very diligent in doing our pelvic floor exercises during our pregnancy to try and minimise the floor sagging too much and the gap opening. Your pelvic floor exercises, unlike other exercises, can be done in a variety of positions without anyone even knowing you're doing them. So if you are at work, you might be able to do them while you're sitting, maybe on the way to work in your car, as long as you can concentrate and have a good posture. Perhaps you can do them when you're lying down. You could even do them on your hands and knees, which will tie in with another video we'll talk about regarding your tummy muscle exercises. You can do them in standing. So I'm going to show you now, we'll go through now, of course I'm sitting, but if you're going to do them in sitting, do try and make sure you're sitting in a good posture. Your muscle will work much better if you're sitting up like I am and not slouched back. You can see how your tummy muscle sags, your pelvic floor will be in a more sagged position too. So it's going to actually be much easier to work them in a good posture if you do sit. We always start, no matter what handouts or videos you watch, you'll notice that we always start the exercise by focusing on the perineal muscle that goes around the anus. So that has a squeeze action. But do make sure you have a time where you can focus on where your back hole is, or your back passage, where your wind would come out. Not your buttocks, but really focusing on the back passage. And then that action is going to be a squeeze action. All right, so we focus on it goes around the little tube, the anus. So imagine the muscle squeezing around a tube. So we squeeze, and then you pull in. And as you do that, you actually feel the floor lift, and then we can feel it squeezing around our vagina and our wee outlet. If you can't hold, then just let it go, and we'll come to the holding in a minute, but I want you to feel a let go, because that's important too. Rest, recover, you need, depending on how strong your muscle is and various other factors will depend, but you should feel it really let go well, and then you repeat. So we'll go again. Squeeze, pull in like you're stopping wind, feeling it squeeze around your vagina, wee outlet. Now we'll hold. Breathing, 3, 4, 5, and let go. But do not try so hard that you hold your breath or you literally see your tummy sucking in, because that's just going to create force and push your bladder, uterus and rectum down. All right, so once you've learned the technique and you've realised that you can hold, let's say for 5 seconds. Initially, as you'll see in the handout that we provide, we usually say perhaps start with holding for 5 seconds and then doing 5 in a row. But the pelvic floor muscle will be increasingly stretched during pregnancy, so we want to continue to challenge it so it can minimise being weakened and stretched. So we do encourage you to gradually challenge the muscle by building up to a hold of 10 seconds. So if you can comfortably hold for 5 seconds now, perhaps every week you can add a second till you can hold for 10. And then you can further challenge it by gradually building up, not only to 5 in a row, but then towards 10 in a row. Generally speaking, to really help with strength training, and in this case we're trying to really strengthen the muscle against the weakening process of pregnancy, you really should aim for 3 sets a day if you can.